The council chamber stretched out like a massive cathedral made of glass and steel. Hundreds of alien species sat in curved rows that rose toward the domed ceiling. Their voices filled the air with strange sounds: clicks, whistles, growls, and electronic pulses. Ambassador Ji-won Kim stood at the center platform, her hands gripping the edge of the podium. She wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, and her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun. The weight of 200 years pressed down on her shoulders. For 2 centuries, humanity had been part of this council. They had shared their technology. They had fought in wars alongside these aliens. They had opened their colonies to refugees and trade. And now, everything was about to change. High Chancellor Vormak sat on the tallest throne. His reptilian face showed no emotion, but his yellow eyes watched Ji-won carefully. His scales were deep green, and they reflected the lights of the chamber like polished stones. Around him sat the other senior council members, representing the most powerful species in known space. "The vote is complete," Vormak announced. His voice came through translators, making it sound mechanical and cold. "Resolution 8847 has passed with a majority vote. All member species must transfer control of their military forces to the Galactic Council Defense Authority within 6 standard months." Ji-won felt her heart pound in her chest. She had known this was coming. For weeks she had seen the signs: closed meetings, whispered conversations that stopped when humans entered the room. The council had grown afraid of humanity's progress, their expansion, their refusal to stay small and quiet. "Ambassador Kim," Vormak continued, "does Earth acknowledge the council's decision?" Ji-won took a deep breath. Behind her, Captain Minho Park stood with 3 security officers. She could feel his presence, steady and calm. Minho had commanded Earth's fleet near the council station for 5 years. He knew what was at stake. "High Chancellor," Ji-won began, her voice clear and strong. "I must speak before Earth responds." Vormak's eyes narrowed. "The vote has concluded. There is nothing to discuss." "There is everything to discuss," Ji-won said firmly. She activated her holographic display, and images appeared in the air around the chamber. The Council's original charter signed 800 years ago. Article 7, Section 3. All member species retain absolute sovereignty over their military forces and internal governance. This resolution violates the founding principles of this council. A bird-like alien named Thexva shifted in her seat. Her feathers were bright blue and her large eyes showed concern. Thexva had been humanity's ally for decades. She knew Ji-won was right, but she remained silent. "The charter can be amended," Vormak replied coldly. "That is why we voted." "A charter amendment requires unanimous consent," Ji-won shot back. "You know this. What you passed today was a resolution, not an amendment. You changed the rules to get what you wanted." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some aliens looked uncomfortable. Others nodded in agreement with Vormak. Dr. Hyun Lee sat in the human observation gallery above the main floor. He was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes. As Earth's chief scientific advisor, he had seen this coming for months. The council feared human innovation. In just 2 centuries, humanity had gone from newcomers to becoming one of the most advanced species in the galaxy. They had solved problems that had stumped alien scientists for thousands of years. They had built ships that flew faster and weapons that hit harder. And worst of all, they refused to share everything freely without getting something in return. "Why are you doing this?" Ji-won demanded, her voice rising. "Humanity has been loyal to this council. We've bled for you. We've shared our discoveries. We've protected weaker species from invasion. And this is how you repay us?" Vormak stood, his massive form towering over the assembly. "Humanity has grown too powerful, too quickly. You expand without permission. You build weapons without oversight. You colonize systems without consultation. The council has decided that such unchecked growth threatens galactic peace." "You mean we threaten your control?" Ji-won said quietly, but every translator in the chamber picked up her words and broadcast them. "You've held power for so long that you've forgotten what freedom means. You've become exactly what this council was created to prevent. Tyrants who use rules to crush anyone who might challenge you." The chamber erupted. Aliens shouted at each other in dozens of languages. Some demanded Ji-won be removed. Others called for order. Thexva finally stood, her wings spreading wide. "The human speaks truth." Thexva cried out. "We have betrayed our own principles. This resolution was created specifically to target humanity, because we fear their success." "Silence!" Vormak roared. You will not question the Council's wisdom, Counselor Thexava. But Thexava continued, I will question it. Many of us will question it. This is not justice. This is not unity. This is fear and jealousy masquerading as policy. Vormak's claws scraped against his throne. The resolution stands. Ambassador Kim, Earth has 6 months to comply or face sanctions, economic blockades, military quarantine, expulsion from Council space. Jiwon looked around the chamber. She saw aliens who had once called themselves friends of humanity now looking away. She saw others watching with hungry eyes, eager to see Earth brought low. She saw a few, like Thexva, who looked ashamed but powerless. She had prepared for this moment. President Sua Choi had authorized her to make this decision if diplomacy failed. General Daeho Shin had already positioned Earth's fleets. Everything was ready. High Chancellor Vormak, Jiwon said, her voice suddenly calm and steady. Members of the Galactic Council. 200 years ago, humanity joined this council with hope and optimism. We believed in cooperation. We believed in mutual respect. We believed that different species could work together as equals. She paused, letting her words sink in. Today you have proven that belief was wrong. You do not want partners. You want servants. You do not want cooperation. You want submission. And humanity will never submit. Vormak leaned forward. Choose your next words carefully, Ambassador. Jiwon smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Effective immediately, the United Earth Government withdraws from the Galactic Council. We renounce all treaties, agreements, and obligations. We will remove all human personnel, civilians, and assets from Council space within 48 hours, and we will defend our sovereignty with every resource at our command. The chamber fell absolutely silent. No one moved. No one breathed. You cannot survive alone, Vormak finally said. The Council controls 90% of galactic trade. Your colonies will starve. Your economy will collapse. You will beg us to return. Jiwon gathered her documents and turned to leave. Perhaps you'll discover that humanity doesn't need you as much as you need us. Either way, we'd rather stand alone in freedom than kneel together in chains. She walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the silent chamber. Captain Minho and the security team fell in behind her. As she reached the door, she turned back one last time. History will remember this day, High Chancellor. The day humanity chose freedom. And I believe history will remember it as the day everything changed. The door closed behind them. Within minutes, alarms began ringing throughout Council space. Humanity was leaving, and the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months had passed since humanity left the Galactic Council. President Sua Choi stood in the command center beneath Seoul, staring at the massive display screens that covered the walls. Each screen showed a different human colony scattered across the Orion arm of the galaxy. 23 worlds, over 15 billion people all watching and waiting. Reports coming in from the outer colonies, General Daeho Shin said, walking up beside her. He was a tall man with short gray hair and a face carved from stone by decades of military service. The Council blockade is complete. No ships in or out of human space. Sua nodded slowly. She had expected this. The Council had made good on their threats. Trade routes were closed. Diplomatic channels were silent. Humanity was alone in the darkness of space, surrounded by species that now viewed them as enemies or, at best, dangerous outlaws. What about supplies? Sua asked. Most colonies have enough food and resources for 18 months, possibly 2 years if we ration carefully, Daeho replied. The agricultural worlds are doing fine. It's the mining colonies and research stations that will struggle. Sua turned to face him. Then we begin the Fortress Protocol. Daeho smiled grimly. I was hoping you'd say that. Across human space, massive construction projects began. Engineer Yunahan supervised the largest of these from Mars orbit. She was young, only 32. But she had designed the defensive network that would protect humanity from whatever the Council might throw at them. Activate Section 7, she commanded, watching as enormous generators came online. The generators created quantum barriers around each human world, invisible shields that could stop weapons, block scans, and redirect enemy ships. The technology had been developed in secret over 20 years, hidden from Council eyes. The barriers flickered into existence, one by one. Each colony disappeared behind its protective shell, safe and isolated. On Earth, Dr. Hyun Lee stood in a laboratory deep underground. Around him, dozens of scientists worked at holographic terminals, their faces lit by the glow of equations and diagrams. They were developing new technologies freed from council oversight and restrictions. How long until the faster-than-light communication network is ready? Hyun asked his assistant. 3 months, maybe 4, the young woman replied. Without council bureaucracy slowing us down, we're making incredible progress. Hyun smiled. The council had feared human innovation, and they had been right to fear it. In isolation, human scientists were about to achieve breakthroughs that would change everything. Meanwhile, in the space between council territory and human worlds, Captain Jiho Kwan guided his small merchant ship through an asteroid field. He was an independent trader, one of the few humans who still operated in neutral zones. His ship, the Morning Star, was old and battered, but it was fast and hard to track. Approaching rendezvous point, his co-pilot said. Jiho checked his scanners. 3 alien ships waited ahead, small vessels from species that had traded with humanity for years. The council had forbidden such trade, but these aliens didn't care about council rules. They needed the goods humanity provided, and they were willing to take risks. This is Jiho Kwan of the Morning Star, he broadcast. I have medical supplies, computer parts, and agricultural seeds. What are you offering? The lead alien ship responded. We have news, a scratchy voice said through the translator. Important news from inside council space. Jiho felt a chill run down his spine. I'm listening. 3 council species are in secret talks with Earth, the alien continued. They're unhappy with Vormak's leadership. They say the blockade is hurting everyone, not just humans. There's talk of following humanity's example. Jiho's hands tightened on the controls. This was bigger than he had expected. He completed the trade quickly and set course back to human space, carrying the most valuable cargo of all, information. Back on Earth, President Sua received Jiho's report in the secure command center. She read it twice, then looked at General Daeho. It's starting, she said quietly. What is? Daeho asked. The cracks in the council's unity. They thought isolating us would make us weak. They didn't realize it would expose their own weaknesses. Days turned into weeks. The council tried to enforce their blockade strictly, but it was impossible. Space was too big, and too many species secretly disagreed with Vormak's policies. Small ships slipped through carrying goods and information. Independent traders like Jiho became heroes in some parts of the galaxy, rebels in others. Then the refugees started arriving. The first ship appeared at the edge of human space near the colony world of New Vancouver. It was a small craft, damaged and barely functioning. Inside were 17 aliens from a species called the Telmari, thin, gray-skinned beings with large eyes and gentle voices. Please, their leader begged when human patrol ships intercepted them. We seek asylum. The council discovered we traded with humans. They arrested our families. They confiscated our ships. We had nowhere else to go. Commander Boram Yoon commanded the patrol fleet. She was younger than most commanders, only 40, but she had proven herself capable and compassionate. She looked at the desperate aliens on her view screen and made a decision. Bring them in, she ordered. Take them to processing on New Vancouver. We'll give them shelter. Word spread quickly. More refugee ships arrived, aliens fleeing council persecution, species tired of Vormak's increasingly authoritarian rule. Human colonies found themselves hosting refugees from a dozen different species, all looking for the freedom that humanity had claimed. President Sua addressed the nation from Seoul. Her face appeared on every screen across human space. My fellow citizens, she began. 6 months ago we left the Galactic Council. Many said we would fail. They said we would starve, that our economy would collapse, that we would beg to return. Today I stand before you to report that they were wrong. She gestured to screens behind her showing thriving human colonies, busy shipyards and productive farms. Our agricultural worlds are feeding our people. Our factories are producing more than ever before. Our scientists are making discoveries that would have been impossible under council restrictions. And most importantly, we remain free. She paused, her expression growing serious. The council continues their blockade. They want to punish us for daring to leave. But every day more aliens realize that the council is not protecting them. It's controlling them. Refugees arrive at our borders seeking the same freedom we claimed, and we will not turn them away. The broadcast continued as Sua outlined new policies. Human space would become a sanctuary for any species fleeing council oppression. Trade would be welcome from any who dared defy the blockade. And humanity would defend not just themselves, but anyone who chose freedom over submission. In orbit around Earth, General Daiho stood on the bridge of the new flagship, the Indomitable. Around him, engineers made final adjustments to systems that the Council had never known existed: weapon systems, shield generators, engine designs that pushed the boundaries of known physics. "How many ships do we have now?" Daiho asked his second-in-command. 300 warships fully operational with another 200 in final construction phases, came the reply. "And they're all equipped with the new technology," Daiho nodded. When humanity had joined the Council 2 centuries ago, they had shared most of their technology openly. But not all of it. Some discoveries had been kept secret, developed quietly, held back for exactly this kind of situation. The Council thought they knew humanity's military capabilities. They were badly mistaken. Engineer Yuna Han reviewed the defensive network status from her command post. Every human world now sat protected behind quantum barriers. Every ship carried improved weapons and shields. Every colony had stores of supplies that would last years, not months. "We're ready," she told President Sua during their weekly briefing. "If the Council attacks, they'll find us much harder to crack than they expect." Sua smiled. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that. But if it does, humanity will be ready." Far out in neutral space, Captain Jiho met with a group of alien merchants. They gathered on a remote asteroid station, in a cantina that smelled of strange foods and recycled air. "The Council is getting desperate," one alien said, a multi-armed creature who spoke through clicking mandibles. "They're increasing patrols, threatening anyone caught trading with humans." "Then we'll be more careful," Jiho replied calmly. "But we won't stop. Humanity needs allies, and the galaxy needs to see that the Council can't control everything." Another alien, this one tall and covered in fur, leaned forward. "There are rumors, whispers. Some species are talking about leaving the Council just like humans did." Jiho raised his glass. "Then maybe humanity's greatest export isn't technology or trade goods. Maybe it's an idea. The idea that you don't have to accept tyranny just because it's old and powerful." The aliens raised their own glasses. And in that small cantina on a forgotten asteroid, an alliance was born that would change the galaxy. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Telmari Confederation had officially withdrawn from the Galactic Council. They were the first species to follow humanity's example, but they would not be the last. Ambassador Jiwon Kim watched the announcement from the human embassy on New Vancouver. The Telmari ambassador stood before their people, reading a statement that echoed the words Jiwon herself had spoken a year ago. Freedom, sovereignty, the right to govern themselves without Council interference. "They're brave," said Hiyori Nam, standing beside Jiwon. Hiyori was a journalist who had left Earth to document the changes sweeping through the galaxy. Her reports were smuggled across Council space, shared in secret networks, read by millions who were tired of Vormak's rule. "They're also in danger," Jiwon replied. "The Council won't let them go peacefully." She was right. Within days, Council warships surrounded Telmari space. Vormak appeared on every screen, his reptilian face twisted with anger. "The Telmari have broken sacred oaths," he declared. "They will return to the Council or they will face the consequences." But the Telmari didn't return. They activated defensive systems that looked suspiciously similar to human technology. When Council ships tried to force their way through, they were turned back by shields they couldn't penetrate and weapons they couldn't match. The Council had expected an easy victory. Instead, they faced humiliation. 2 weeks later, the Novari Union announced their withdrawal. They were followed by the Helicos Federation, 3 species in 1 month, all choosing independence over Council membership. High Chancellor Vormak called an emergency session. The Council chamber was tense, filled with angry voices and worried faces. Councillor Thexva stood and addressed the assembly. "This is our own fault," she said, her blue feathers ruffled with agitation. "We drove humanity away with our fear and jealousy. Now others follow them because they see what we've become, tyrants who use rules to control rather than protect." "Silence," Vormak roared. "These species are traitors, all of them. They've been corrupted by human propaganda." "No," Thexva said firmly. "They've been inspired by human courage. There's a difference." The argument raged for hours, but nothing was resolved. The Council was fracturing, and everyone knew it. On Earth, President Sua met with General Daiho and Dr. Hyun Lee. They gathered in the secure command center, Reviewing reports from across the galaxy. The Council is preparing for military action, Deho said, pointing to reconnaissance data. They're moving fleets toward the Telmari worlds. If they attack, it will be a massacre. Can we help them? Sua asked. Officially? No, Deho replied. If we send warships, it becomes a war between humanity and the Council. That's exactly what Vormak wants, an excuse to unite the Council against a common enemy. Then we help unofficially, Hyun suggested. Technology transfers, defensive equipment, training and advisors. We give them the tools to defend themselves. Sua considered this carefully. Make it happen, but quietly. No human ships in their space, no overt military presence. We're not conquerors. We're not even rescuers. We're just neighbors sharing what we have. Commander Boram Yoon took charge of what they called Operation Freedom Road. Her mission was to evacuate refugees and deliver supplies to species who needed them. She commanded a small fleet of fast ships that could slip through Council patrols. Her first major mission took her to the Novari Union. The Novari were amphibious beings who lived on water-covered worlds. Council forces had blockaded their system, cutting off trade and threatening invasion. This is Commander Boram Yoon of Earth Defense Force, she broadcast as her ships approached. We're carrying medical supplies, food synthesizers, and defensive equipment. We're also prepared to evacuate any civilians who want to leave. The Novari response came quickly. Commander Yoon, your arrival is most welcome. The Council has threatened to bombard our cities if we don't submit. We need help. Boram's ships moved into orbit. Within hours, they were offloading cargo and taking on refugees. Council ships detected them and demanded they leave, but Boram ignored the warnings. When Council vessels moved to intercept, human fighters launched from the cargo ships, providing cover. No shots were fired. The Council ships backed off, unwilling to start an open war with humanity. But the message was clear. Humanity would not stand by while others fought for freedom alone. Journalist Hiyori Nam traveled with Boram's fleet, documenting everything. Her reports showed refugees being rescued, supplies being delivered, and species standing up to Council tyranny. She broadcast these stories across underground networks that reached deep into Council space. The galaxy is changing, Hiyori said in one of her reports. Ordinary people are asking questions they've never asked before. Why do we need the Council? What has it done for us lately? Are we truly protected or are we just controlled? Her words resonated with millions. On Council worlds, protests began. Small at first, a few dozen aliens gathering in public squares, holding signs demanding reform. Then hundreds, then thousands. The Council tried to suppress the demonstrations, but that only made them grow larger. Meanwhile, Councillor Thexva worked behind the scenes. She met secretly with other Council members who were unhappy with Vormak's leadership. They called themselves the Reform Coalition, and they wanted to restructure the Council to prevent any one leader from having too much power. We need allies, Thexva told her fellow reformists. The Council is too big, too entrenched. We can't change it from within unless we have pressure from without. One of her allies, a dignified elderly alien named Corvus, agreed. The humans were right to leave. Perhaps we should have left with them. It's not too late, Thexva said. But we need to be careful. Vormak is looking for traitors. If he discovers what we're planning, she didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone knew what happened to Council members who opposed the High Chancellor too openly. In a region of space between Council and human territory, a warlord named Xenarch Krell controlled a dozen systems through military might and cunning. Krell was an imposing figure, his insectoid body covered in thick armor plates, his forearms each capable of wielding a weapon. He had stayed neutral in the conflict between humanity and the Council, but now he saw an opportunity. The Council's blockade is bad for business, Krell announced to his advisors. Trade is suffering. Profits are down. I don't like it. What do you propose? One of his captains asked. Krell's mandibles clicked in what might have been a smile. I propose we declare my space a free trade zone. Any ship, any species, any cargo, as long as they pay the transit fees. Let the humans in the Council and everyone else come through my territory. We'll get rich and they can fight somewhere else. The declaration sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Xenarch Krell's territory was strategically located, a shortcut between major trade routes. By opening his space to everyone, he effectively broke the Council's blockade. Council ships couldn't enter Krell's territory without starting a war they weren't ready to fight. Human ships and independent traders began using the route immediately. Goods flowed again, and the Council's economic weapon was blunted. Vormak was furious. He called Krell a traitor and demanded other Council members enforce the blockade in his territory. But many Council members quietly cheered Krell's decision. Their own economies were suffering from the blockade, and they wanted trade restored. 6 months after humanity's departure, the situation had completely changed. 3 species had left the Council. Protests erupted on dozens of Council worlds. A warlord had opened a free trade corridor, and humanity had emerged not as isolated outcasts, but as the center of a growing movement toward freedom and independence. President Sua addressed her people again, her message broadcast to human colonies and beyond. "We did not leave the Galactic Council to start a revolution," she said. "We left because we believed in freedom and sovereignty. But sometimes, standing up for yourself inspires others to stand up too. The galaxy is changing and humanity is part of that change." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "To those who fight for their freedom, you are not alone. To those who question their leaders, you have the right to ask questions. To those who fear the future, remember that change is always frightening, but it's also necessary. The old ways are dying, something new is being born, and all we can do is try to make sure that what comes next is better than what came before." Deep in Council space, a young alien student watched Sua's broadcast on an illegal screen in his dormitory. Around him, his classmates gathered, watching and listening. They were from different species, different worlds, but they all felt the same thing: hope. "Do you think we could do it?" one of them asked. "Leave the Council like the humans did?" The first student looked at his friends. "I don't know, but maybe we should try." Across the galaxy, that conversation was happening in millions of homes, schools, and workplaces. The domino effect had begun, and no one could stop it now. The Council Armada was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Over 2,000 warships gathered at the edge of human space, their weapons charged and their crews ready for battle. High Chancellor Vormak had decided that humanity must be crushed as an example to others. Fleet Admiral Tae-Woo An stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the Council fleet approach on his scanners. He was an older man, his face weathered by years of service, but his eyes were sharp and his voice was steady. "Status report," he commanded. "Council fleet holding position at the border," his tactical officer replied. "They're probably waiting for reinforcements or final orders from Vormak." "How long until they attack?" "Unknown, sir, but they're clearly preparing for a full assault." Tae-Woo nodded slowly. He had expected this. The Council couldn't allow humanity to remain independent and successful. It would inspire too many others to leave, so they had decided to make an example of humanity, to show the galaxy what happened to species who defied the Council's will. "Send a message to all human colonies," Tae-Woo ordered. "Activate all defensive systems. This is not a drill." Across human space, the quantum barriers strengthened. Defense platforms powered up. Warships moved into position. Humanity had spent 2 years preparing for this moment, and they were ready. On Earth, President Sua convened an emergency meeting with her top advisors. General Daeho, Dr. Hyun Lee, Ambassador Jiwon, and Commander Borum all gathered in the Situation Room. "Options?" Sua asked bluntly. "We can defend ourselves," Daeho said. "Our barriers will hold against their first assault, maybe even their second and third. But if they keep coming, eventually they'll break through." "What about counterattacking?" Sua asked. Daeho hesitated. "We could hurt them badly, maybe even destroy a significant portion of their fleet. But it would mean open war across the entire galaxy." Dr. Hyun cleared his throat. "I may have another option. We've completed the faster-than-light communication network. It's functional, tested, and ready for deployment." Everyone turned to look at him. "And?" Sua prompted. "We share it with every independent species in the galaxy," Hyun said simply. "Not just the ones who left the Council. Everyone. We broadcast the technology openly, make it available to anyone who wants it." "Why would that help?" Borum asked. "Because it changes everything," Hyun explained. "Instant communication across any distance. Imagine what that means for trade, for coordination, for connecting species who've never been able to talk in real time before. It would revolutionize galactic civilization." Jiwon's eyes widened. "And the Council would lose one of their greatest advantages: control over information and communication networks." "Exactly," Hyun said. Right now, they control the major relay stations. They can block messages, intercept communications, isolate species they want to punish. But if everyone has access to our FTL communication technology, that control disappears. Sua considered this for a long moment. Do it. Broadcast the technology to everyone. Let the galaxy have it as a gift from humanity. Within hours, human scientists transmitted the FTL communication plans across every frequency and network they could access. The information spread like wildfire. Detailed blueprints, construction guides, everything needed to build the technology. It was given freely, with no restrictions and no demands for payment or loyalty. The effect was immediate and profound. Species that had been isolated for centuries suddenly found themselves able to communicate instantly with neighbors. Trade agreements that once took months to negotiate could now be completed in minutes. Independent species formed networks and alliances that the Council couldn't monitor or control. And in the middle of this technological revolution, the Council fleet attacked human space. Admiral Tewu watched the first wave approach. Thousands of missiles and energy beams struck the quantum barriers protecting Earth's colonies. The barriers held, shimmering and rippling but never breaking. "Return fire," Tewu ordered calmly. Human warships launched their counterattack, but they didn't use conventional weapons. Instead, they deployed technology the Council had never seen before. Gravity weapons that crushed ships like tin cans, electromagnetic pulses that fried entire fleets' electronic systems, and precision missiles that could navigate through any defense. The Council's first wave was destroyed in minutes. Not a single human ship was lost. On the Council flagship, the commanding admiral stared at his view screen in horror. Half his fleet was gone just like that. He had expected an easy victory. Instead, he faced a disaster. "Pull back," he ordered. "Regroup at fallback position." But Admiral Tewu didn't let them escape easily. Human ships pursued, harrying the Council fleet as it retreated, destroying stragglers and damaging ships that moved too slowly. The battle lasted only 3 hours, but its impact would last forever. The mighty Galactic Council had attacked humanity with its greatest military force, and humanity had crushed them effortlessly. News of the defeat spread across the galaxy through the new FTL communication networks. Within a day, everyone knew what had happened. The Council wasn't invincible. Humanity was more powerful than anyone had suspected. And the balance of power had shifted dramatically. On Council worlds, the protests grew larger and more violent. People demanded answers. Why had their leaders attacked humanity? Why had so many soldiers died? What was the Council trying to achieve? In the Council chamber, Councillor Thexva and the Reform Coalition made their move. With half the Council members now openly supporting them, they called for a vote of no confidence in High Chancellor Vormak. "You have failed us," Thexva declared, her voice echoing through the chamber. "You attacked humanity out of pride and fear, and you led our people into a disaster. You've turned the Council into a tyranny. You've made us into oppressors, and we say no more." Vormak stood, his scales dark with rage. "You dare challenge me? I am the High Chancellor. I have ruled this Council for 50 years. And you will rule it no longer," Thexva said firmly. "The vote will proceed. Either you resign with dignity, or we will remove you by force." The chamber erupted into chaos. Council security forces didn't know who to follow, Vormak or the Reform Coalition. Some species declared their loyalty to the High Chancellor. Others supported Thexva. The Galactic Council was tearing itself apart. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, species were making their own choices. 16 more species announced their withdrawal from the Council in a single day. They formed a new organization, calling it the Free Worlds Alliance, with humanity as its founding member but not its leader. Commander Borum led Operation Freedom Road into overdrive. Her ships evacuated millions of refugees from Council worlds where violence had broken out. They delivered supplies to species fighting for their independence. They protected trade convoys moving through contested space. Journalist Hiyori Nam documented everything. Her reports showed the Council's cruelty, humanity's restraint, and the bravery of ordinary people fighting for freedom. She interviewed refugees, soldiers, merchants, and leaders. Her stories gave voice to the voiceless and hope to the desperate. Insurgent movements erupted across Council space. A woman named Sora Yang, a former Council officer who had defected to the Free Worlds Alliance, coordinated resistance cells on dozens of planets. She organized protests, shared information, and helped people escape Council persecution. The council is finished, Sora told her fellow resistance leaders during a secret meeting conducted through the new FTL communication network. They just don't know it yet. Their power came from controlling information and military might. Now they've lost both. All we have to do is keep pushing, and they'll collapse. Back in council space, Vormak's support crumbled daily. Council members abandoned him to save themselves. Military commanders refused his orders. Entire fleets defected to the Reform Coalition or declared neutrality. Finally, facing arrest and trial for crimes against galactic peace, Vormak fled. His ship was last seen jumping into deep space, heading for regions unknown. With Vormak gone, Councillor Thexva addressed what remained of the council. Less than half the original members were still present. The rest had left or were in rebellion. The Galactic Council as we knew it is dead, Thexva said sadly. We killed it through arrogance, through fear, through our refusal to change with the times. But perhaps from its ashes something better can be born. She turned to face the empty seats where so many species once sat. To those who have left, we do not blame you. To those who fought for freedom, we honor your courage. To humanity, who showed us what we had become, we offer our deepest apologies and our gratitude. President Sua watched Thexva's speech from Earth. Around her, her advisors waited for her response. What do we do now? General Deho asked. Sua smiled. Now we build something new, something better. We help create a galaxy where species govern themselves, where cooperation is voluntary, where freedom matters more than control. Admiral Tewu stood down his fleets. The war was over before it had truly begun. Humanity had won not through conquest, but through demonstrating that another way was possible. Dr. Hyun continued his work, developing new technologies and sharing them freely. The faster-than-light gates that would revolutionize travel, medical advances that would save millions of lives, energy systems that would power entire civilizations cleanly and efficiently. 5 years had passed since humanity walked out of the Galactic Council chamber. The old station, once called Nexus Prime, had been renamed New Concordia. It looked different now, cleaner, brighter, with flags and symbols from 47 different species decorating its halls instead of the Council's single imposing banner. Chancellor Ji-won Kim stood at the window of her new office, looking out at the ships coming and going from the station. Human vessels mixed with alien craft of every size and shape. Trade flowed freely. People moved without restriction. It was beautiful, and it had taken so much work to build. She still couldn't quite believe she held this position. The founding members of the Galactic Federation had elected her as their first chancellor in a vote that included all 47 species equally. Humanity had argued against taking the leadership role, but the other species had insisted. You showed us the way, Thexva had said during the nomination. You stood up when others were afraid. You shared instead of hoarding. You protected instead of conquering. Who better to lead us into this new era? So Ji-won had accepted with the understanding that she served at the pleasure of all member species. Not just humanity. Any species could call for new elections at any time. No one held power permanently in the new federation. A gentle chime announced a visitor. President Sua Choi entered, looking older but somehow more peaceful than she had during the desperate days of the war. Madam President, Ji-won greeted her with a smile. I wasn't expecting you today. I'm not president anymore, Sua reminded her. My term ended 6 months ago, remember? Now I'm just an advisor to the Federation, same as any other retired leader. They sat together looking out at the busy station. How does it feel? Sua asked. Being chancellor of a real democratic federation instead of a puppet to a tyrannical council? Exhausting, Ji-won admitted. Every day there's a new crisis. Border disputes, trade negotiations, species who still don't trust each other learning to work together. It's messy and complicated, and sometimes I wonder if we knew what we were getting into. But it's worth it, Sua said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Ji-won agreed. It's worth it. In another part of the station, Admiral Minho Park walked through the Federation security complex. He commanded the Federation peacekeeping forces, not an army of conquest, but a defense force pledged to protect all member species equally. His ships patrolled trade routes, responded to emergencies, and helped species defend themselves from pirates and raiders. The peacekeeping forces followed strict rules written into the Federation Charter. They could not invade member worlds. They could not overthrow governments. They could not be used for political purposes. They existed only to defend, never to attack. Admiral Park, a young officer, approached him. "We've received a distress call from the Helico system. Raiders are attacking a mining colony. Dispatch the nearest patrol squadron," Minho ordered, "and inform the Helico's government we're responding to their call for assistance." This was how the Federation worked. Each species governed itself completely. But when they needed help, the collective strength of 47 worlds stood ready to assist. Dr. Hyun Lee sat in a laboratory that had grown to fill an entire wing of New Concordia. Around him, scientists from dozens of species worked together, sharing knowledge and developing technologies that would benefit everyone. The Galactic Science Cooperative was one of Hyun's proudest achievements. When humanity had been part of the old council, scientific research was controlled and restricted. New discoveries had to be approved before being shared. Species hoarded their best innovations. Now, everything was open. A breakthrough made by one species was immediately available to all. The results had been staggering: medical cures, energy systems, faster ships, better food production, cleaner manufacturing. Progress that would have taken centuries under the council was happening in just years. Dr. Lee, one of his assistants, called out. She was a young Telmari scientist named Kessel, brilliant and enthusiastic. "The subspace fold calculations are complete. I think we've done it." Hyun rushed over to examine her work. His eyes widened as he read the numbers. "Instant travel gates," he breathed. "Not just fast than light, but instant. We could connect the entire galaxy." "Should we publish the findings?" Kessel asked. Hyun didn't hesitate. "Immediately. Share it with everyone. That's what we do now." In a courtroom elsewhere on New Concordia, the trial of former High Chancellor Vormak was reaching its conclusion. He had been found hiding on a remote world and brought back to face justice. The trial had lasted 3 months, broadcast live across the galaxy. Vormak stood in the defendant's chair, looking smaller and older than he had during his years of power. His scales had dulled and his eyes showed defeat. The Chief Justice, a dignified alien named Corvus, who had once served on the Reform Coalition, read the verdict. "Former High Chancellor Vormak, you have been found guilty of crimes against sapient species. You ordered attacks on civilian populations. You imprisoned those who disagreed with you. You used your position to oppress rather than protect. The court sentences you to life imprisonment, with the provision that you may apply for parole after 20 years if you demonstrate genuine remorse and rehabilitation." Vormak said nothing as guards led him away. Some in the gallery cheered. Others sat in silence, processing what his trial meant, that even the most powerful could be held accountable. Captain Jiho Kwan sat in a cantina on New Concordia, surrounded by other independent traders. His smuggling days were over. Now he was a legitimate merchant, running a profitable trade business between Federation worlds. "Remember when we had to sneak through asteroid fields just to deliver medical supplies?" one of his companions asked, laughing. Jiho smiled. "Now we can fly openly. No blockades, no hiding. It's almost boring." "Almost," another trader agreed. "But I'll take boring and free over exciting and oppressed any day." They raised their glasses in a toast. Around them, the cantina was filled with beings from across the galaxy. Species that once feared each other now talking, trading, and becoming friends. Journalist Hiyori Nam sat at a desk in the Federation Press Center, writing her latest article. Her work had changed over the years. Instead of documenting oppression and war, she now wrote about cooperation and progress. It was a better kind of story to tell. Her current article profiled young people from different species who were attending the first Federation Academy on Earth. They were learning together, forming friendships and preparing to be the next generation of leaders, scientists, artists, and thinkers. One of her interview subjects was a human teenager named Bora, who studied alongside Telmari, Novari, and even some aliens from former council species that had joined the Federation. "What's it like?" Yuri had asked her. "Being part of this first class?" Bora had thought about it carefully before answering. "It feels like we're building something new. Our parents and grandparents fought to make this possible. Now it's our turn to prove it can work." Commander Boromune had retired from military service to become director of the Refugee Resettlement Program. She helped aliens who had fled council persecution find new homes in Federation space. Millions had come seeking freedom, and millions more would likely follow. "Do you ever regret leaving the military?" Someone asked her once. No, Borum replied. I fought to protect people. Now I protect them in a different way. The mission hasn't changed, just the methods. Back in the Chancellor's office, Jiwan prepared for the Federation Assembly meeting. Today, 3 more species would petition to join the Federation. They had met all the requirements: democratic government, respect for individual rights, renunciation of aggressive warfare, and commitment to mutual cooperation. If accepted, they would bring the Federation to 50-member worlds. 50 species choosing to work together voluntarily, bound not by force but by shared values and common goals. Thexva entered the office. She served as Jiwan's deputy, helping manage the day-to-day operations of the Federation government. The assembly is ready, Thexva said, though I should warn you there's going to be debate about the Karathi petition. Some members worry they're not ready. Democracy is messy, Jiwan said, echoing words Sua had once told her. But that's how we know it's real. They walked together to the assembly hall. It was a beautiful space, circular and open, with seats arranged in rings so that no species sat above or below another. Every member had an equal voice. Decisions required majority approval, and major changes needed 2/3 agreement. The session began with the traditional words, spoken in turn by representatives of each founding species. We gather freely. We speak openly. We decide together. We stand as equals. The petitioning species presented their cases. The assembly asked questions, raised concerns, and debated the merits. It took hours, but finally votes were called. All 3 species were accepted. The Federation now had 50 members. As the session ended, Jiwan stood to address the assembly. 5 years ago, humanity made a choice. We chose freedom over security, risk over certainty, the unknown over the comfortable. Many thought we would fail. Some hoped we would fail, but we didn't fail. And we didn't succeed alone. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of beings from dozens of different worlds. Every species here made that same choice. You chose to govern yourselves rather than be governed.